What's up, fam? It is Michael Babbitt, and I'm taking you through 7 days of sound design. That's right, 1 week, all Omnisphere. I've created 7 different types of sounds, so each day I'll present a new sound, and I'll show you how it was made. Welcome to day 6. Today we're running Becky Jean Williams' beautiful vocal through Omnisphere's Granular oscillator, and we're doing a ton of modulation as well. So you're going to want to pay close attention to this one. Before we get started, I need to point out something very important. You'll see it here in the comments. Please read that, understand it, and respect it. Thank you. Let's take a look at the layers. So we've got 2 layers, not just one, of Becky's vocal. And then we've got a JP8 saw and a Prophet 6 sub. Let's turn off all the other layers right now, solo just A, and we'll play these one at a time. Yep, we're going to have fun with this one. Let's hear the other vocal layer on B right now. You can't hear it yet, but layer A and B complement each other. You'll see. Let's check out the JP8 saw. There we go, showing you some modulation there. And now the Prophet 6 sub sandwich. So the reason I added a couple of DSP waveforms to this patch is because I wanted some low-end foundation. And the marriage of the saw wave and the sine wave make nice babies. So here's a cool little tip. If you ever import a sample in yourself, which I hope you will do, you look over here on the coarse tuning. What I had to do was tune it so that it would be in pitch with the actual key. And you can tune it by referencing another layer with a saw wave or something like that. All right, as I mentioned earlier, we're using the granular oscillator for Becky's vocal, which I imported earlier. And for layer A, we're using the position setting. That means that the playhead is going to stay at a set position until you move it. So as you can see, I've assigned the modulation wheel so I can scrub the playhead. Watch. Very sexy. The modulation wheel. Yeah. No, Becky's vocal. Both. Okay, let's zoom out and see what else we got going on over here. All right, move your eye over to the low-pass, crisp 12 dB filter that I have enabled right now. Why is that there? Let's do an A-B comparison. It's subtle, but it does take a little bit of the high-end harshness off the vocal. Now, just to be clear, the saw wave layer that I introduced called for this adjustment, okay? Now let's jump over to layer B so I can show you the other vocal sample we've dropped in. The coarse tuning, again, adjusted. And we're going to click on the granular oscillator zoom, and this time we've set the speed parameter. What does that mean? Just like we did on layer A, we're going to assign our modulation wheel to this slider, but it's going to behave differently than it did on that layer. Instead of scrubbing, what it's going to do is change the direction, forward or reverse, of that automatic playhead. But before I demonstrate that, zoom out, and I want to show you the reverse button was enabled here to reverse the sample, and then I changed the start time to be further into that sample. Let me show you by playing, and I'll move the modulation wheel so you can see that in action. So you can see by increasing the modulation wheel, it changes the direction of those playheads. All right, leaving the granular oscillators zoom, let's go in and check out what we've got here set for the filter. I've got a bandpass Juicy 12 dB filter, and we can see that the cutoff is being modulated by LFO 3, which is set to be a sine wave. And if we go over to the left pane here, you can see the speed that it's set at in both places. And over here on the target routing, you can see this motion showing how the LFO is moving. So keep your eye on that as I play and listen to how the LFO is affecting the cutoff of that filter. And of course, the LFO is set to sync to tempo, so that will always be in time with your tracks. Let's go check out layer C now. This is our JP8 saw wave, and I've dropped it down 1 octave because it's going to be one of our 2 pulsing bass sounds. Inside the unison, I've got a wide stereo spread on it and a little bit of detuning. Zooming out, let's check out the next modulated parameter. It is the symmetry of the JP8 saw, and you can see that I'm modulating it with mod envelope 1. Now, if we zoom into the envelope, we can see it's a very odd shape, but you'll understand why as I play and change it. Did you notice how that little notch in the corner of the envelope makes all the difference? Crazy. Okay, let's zoom back out. And finally, let's head on into layer D. Now from the surface here, it looks like nothing's going on with the Prophet 6 sub, so we gotta go under the hood. Let's zoom into the modulation matrix and take a look at some of our modulation routings. For example, mod envelope 1 is controlling the amplitude as the target. If we jump back over to layer C, we can see that the same thing is happening there as well. Modulation envelope 1 controlling the amplitude, and because it's inverted, the pulsing that is resulting on layers C and D from that envelope is going to be syncopated. Now let's check out the modulation routings for layer A and B, and you'll notice we have the same configuration here, using mod envelope 1 to control the amplitude of both of these layers. The difference, however, is that they're muted. So while that control exists, you'll need to unmute them. I've given you the preference to have or not. But those aren't the only modulation routings set up for these 2 layers. Let's jump over to page 2. Here, you will see that Aftertouch is assigned to LFO2 depth. And just below that, we can see that LFO2 is assigned to amplitude. So in addition to mod envelope 1, we're using LFO2 to do the same thing. Well, almost. While it's not super obvious from that overhead cam, I am pressing down on the key using the Aftertouch to enable LFO2's 16th note pulsing. Oh, and by the way, if we go back into layer C and D, you can see I've done the same thing there as well. The difference here, however, is instead of using Aftertouch, we go to page 1, we can see our modulation wheel is modulating LFO1 depth. Did your head just explode? Well, I warned you earlier, there's a lot of stuff going on with this patch, but all of it is really cool, very useful, real-time control. And there you can see LFO1 looks exactly the same as LFO2. And that is so we can control them separately and get the same kinds of results. All right, let's turn all the layers on and jump into the effects section now. You can see I'm not sending anything to the auxiliary bus from the master or the common, but in here I've got 2 delays, 1 BPM and 1 radio. Both complement each other really well. Now I want to point out on layer A, I'm sending a little bit to the auxiliary, and B, I'm doing the same thing. So those 2 layers, those are the vocal layers that are already getting delay by default. Now I'm doing something a little different on C and D. I am sending the auxiliary only when I open up the modulation wheel. So if I show modulation, unfortunately, off your screen. You can see the modulation wheel is modulating layer auxiliary send. So it's sending C and D to both delays on the auxiliary bus, like so. See the way it trails off? I love the high-pass, low-pass filter combination on the radio delay. Awesome. All right, let's check out the effects we have on layer A. I've inserted a parametric EQ. This is 3-band, and I'm using it to tame Becky's vocal just a little bit in this mix. And beneath that, I've added a precision compressor to keep that under control as well. And then on layer B, I've got an analog chorus. And just below that, I'm using the stereo imager to widen the field of that layer. And with the sync button on, it is bouncing left and right to tempo. And then again, adding another precision compressor below that to keep it under control. Nothing on layer C and nothing on layer D. On the common tab, all we have here is a tape slammer with no saturation or age. We're just using kind of a basic setting with the intent of bringing up the overall level of the entire patch. Okay, what do you say we play? And there you have it, my vocal phrase granular patch. Thanks to Late Night Alumni and Cascade. Thank you for joining me again, Michael Babbitt, for 7 days of sound design. Day 7, the final day, is on its way next. See you then. Love ya.